Most people spend their entire lives working hard for money, but they have never actually understood how this invisible architecture truly operates today. I am talking about the real financial system, those hidden rules deciding whether you will constantly struggle or sleep peacefully every single night. Nobody explains these complex rules because the people who benefit the most from your ignorance are the exact ones writing them out today. In the next few minutes, I will show you exactly how you have been playing a rigged game without learning the actual rules. Let me ask you a very simple question right now. What actually is money? Most people will say it is an exchange medium. While that definition is technically true, it is entirely incomplete, because in reality, money is simply a collective agreement based strictly on trust. We all collectively agree this paper or these digital numbers hold value. Fiat currencies actually possess absolutely no real intrinsic net worth today. Their entire perceived value depends strictly upon strong public confidence. That fact is the very first grand illusion you must totally understand now. When you finally receive that hard-earned paycheck, you are not receiving actual wealth. You are merely receiving a written claim on real wealth. The precise moment everyday people stop believing in that collective promise, it suddenly evaporates entirely. The government absolutely could not physically stop it. It only continues to genuinely work because we all collectively agree it works. Centuries ago, a tiny group realized a dangerously profound truth. They realized if they could somehow control that underlying trust and agreement, they could effectively control absolutely everything in our entire modern society. So they deliberately built complex banking systems and powerful institutions specifically designed to make money seem like an entirely incomprehensible, mystical foreign concept. And their intricate master plan worked absolutely flawlessly. Most normal people never actually question what money truly is in their daily waking lives. They just blindly use it to constantly survive. If they lack enough funds, they instinctively blame themselves for all their perceived financial shortcomings. Let me firmly assure you today that massive self-blame is not an unfortunate accident. It is entirely by careful and deliberate institutional design. So let me slowly walk you through exactly how this actual invisible banking system operates completely behind tightly closed corporate vault doors today. When you deposit your hard-earned cash into a standard bank account, the bank does not just safely store it inside a secure vault. Instead of securing it, they immediately loan it out to other desperate people. This complex legal mechanism is called fractional reserve banking today. Under these specific rules, major banks are strictly required to physically hold only a tiny fractional percentage of total customer deposits in reserve. But here's the absolutely crazy part that will truly make your brain hurt badly. Banks actually lend out entirely non-existent money daily. They literally create this brand new money digitally out of thin air, simply by aggressively issuing completely new loans to eager everyday consumer borrowers. Every single digital dollar in our financial system, beyond physical paper currency, is essentially a massive debt that someone currently owes a bank. Really think incredibly deeply about that concept. Your monthly salary and savings account only exist because someone elsewhere is paying massive loan interest. If absolutely everyone suddenly defaulted on those bank loans, that digital money would effectively disappear entirely from the modern financial banking system instantly. And here's exactly where reality gets significantly darker. Our entire current financial architecture strictly requires massive expanding debt just to continue growing. It desperately requires perpetual and never-ending economic growth. Why? Because absolutely every single issued loan permanently has mandatory interest payments tightly attached today. If a massive bank magically creates $1 million in new loans at 5%, they inject $1 million into our global economy. But they simultaneously create a strict institutional requirement for $1,050,000 to practically exist to safely pay it back. Where exactly does that vital extra $50,000 magically come from? The brutal answer clearly demands issuing even more loans and debt. It is a highly vicious and inescapable cycle that aggressively demands constant, endless expansion to simply function. This is absolutely not a bug. This endless debt trap is a carefully engineered primary feature. The original financial architects completely understood extremely dark underlying human behavioral psychology perfectly. They knew average people would vastly prefer to falsely feel rich living in debt than to genuinely feel poor while remaining totally free. They meticulously constructed a massive modern consumer culture where carrying wildly heavy financial debt is completely normalized and fully expected by absolutely everyone. The actual grim statistical reality today is totally insane. The typical average American household currently carries well over $154,000. And that staggering numeric figure only officially represents small individual households. The actual United States national debt officially surged completely past $37 trillion. Yet remarkably, most ordinary working people still genuinely think all of this is entirely their own tragic personal fault and isolated individual failing. They truly believe they are just inherently bad with complex personal finances, but they are absolutely not inherently bad with their personal money. They are just blindly playing an incredibly rigged financial game secretly designed by powerful people who constantly win when regular everyday people lose. The absolute very first critical step to effectively changing any rigged systemic game is to finally pause and definitively learn the true rules. You might currently be naively thinking you could practically choose to completely opt out of this toxic system and completely avoid participating entirely. And strictly technically speaking, you are completely functionally right. You could. But the overarching system deliberately built inescapable and powerful psychological retention hooks. These deep psychological behavioral hooks exist to absolutely ensure that most regular working people practically never even genuinely try truly completely escaping it. First, we definitively have the extremely powerful social status effect. In modern society, having money is no longer strictly about basic human survival. It is almost entirely about loudly and proudly signaling to polite society that you have extremely successfully made it in this hard life. The banking system practically ensures you loudly signal that vague subjective success purely through massively expensive and entirely unnecessary heavy material consumer spending. You are heavily pressured constantly to proudly buy the massive suburban house, the luxury vehicle, and extremely expensive new yearly technological cellular phones. You are absolutely not naturally born genuinely wanting all these shiny material things with such a shockingly fierce and completely unrelenting inner intensity. You were incredibly carefully and systematically trained to desperately desire them through highly manipulative advertisements and constantly scrolling addictive social networking media platforms. And the absolute most evil genius part of this whole trap readily allows you to physically have them immediately right exactly now today. You can proudly possess these massively expensive luxury items very long before you can ever practically afford to financially pay for them fully. That temporary magic trick is precisely what modern consumer debt functionally is. It is effectively a dangerous financial time machine for immediate consumption. You finally get to feel incredibly wealthy and remarkably successful today, but you strictly pay for it over the following 30 long years. Here is what is genuinely completely terrifying about this entire arrangement. While you are desperately paying that massive debt, you are completely trapped. You absolutely cannot comfortably afford to take bold financial risks. You totally cannot safely quit the miserable corporate day job you utterly despise. You cannot bravely start your absolute dream business. You are permanently trapped inside an invisible but extremely highly comfortable psychological consumer luxury cage. Powerful individuals sitting at the absolute very top completely rely on this specific dynamic. They clearly know heavy debtors are completely, utterly predictable. So these giant institutions purposely invent exceptionally complex, confusing financial banking products absolutely specifically designed to continuously extract massive, predatory daily consumer fees. They strategically implement deeply painful overdraft fees, incredibly sky-high annual percentages, and permanently rotating minimum credit card payments to keep you paying endlessly. None of this hidden structure is overly complicated by total accident. Every single deeply confusing tiny detail is meticulously fully engineered on purpose. Because when you predictably fail entirely within their complex financial maze, you instinctively strictly direct all your angry inner frustration completely toward yourself. Now, let me plainly show you exactly how the extraordinarily wealthy elite half actually lives and strictly behaves completely differently right now today. They absolutely do not ever foolishly use heavy debt the precise same terrible exact way that normal working everyday average people continually do. Here is the massive fundamental core difference. When you eagerly borrow money, you proudly borrow strictly to rapidly consume heavily instantly depreciating goods. When a wealthy individual strategically borrows cheap bank capital, they purposefully strictly invest it into highly valuable, rapidly compounding strong financial cash assets. The interest they pay is very often wonderfully completely tax deductible. So they cleverly use incredible tax advantages to cheaply actively fund massive investments. This smart dynamic perfectly allows incredible compounding interest to effectively become the undisputed, absolute, most universally powerful dominant force in modern global finance. If you smartly, aggressively invest $10,000 initial dollars at 10 yearly percent, 40 long years later, you magically hold massive generational wealth. But the brutal financial mathematical catch requires holding initial base money first. Knowing these harsh core system rules perfectly completely stops all self-blame. Small, consistent actions compound into massive financial transformation, and your future self will certainly thank you deeply for starting this important journey today. Please drop a comment below and let me know exactly which specific financial action you are actively committing to mastering this particular week. And do not forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for all of our future videos. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in our next video.